This past week, James Gunn announced multiple new film and TV projects for the first chapter of DC's cinematic universe that he and Peter Safran are heading. While some people deeply devoted to Zack Snyder seem a little upset, the majority of classic DC Comics fans, including myself, are very excited for what this means for DC. It seems like Gunn is both a Morrison and Tom King fanboy, and as the same, I'm very excited for all of this, even the projects that seem a little less than obvious, and especially pumped for a few that I truly think capture what DC is and should be on the big screen. For what will probably be the very first time in history since Richard Donner's Superman or Tim Burton's Batman's. This week I'm deep diving into James Gunn's future DC slate and what they could possibly be building to. Hint. I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. First off, do me a favor and hit subscribe and the bell. I make about one of these videos a week. They're all great, so don't miss even one of these videos. Now, first off, James Gunn confirmed a few things that I hadn't fully expected. While Shazam was, of course, moving forward, as expected, The Flash, with its extremely troubled star, still is also. Ezra Miller apparently is committed to recovery and restitution, according to James Gunn, but personally, I can't imagine them continuing as Flash hereafter. Apparently, though, The Flash as a film is amazing through all accounts. Of course, people have said that about other DC films that ended up being stinkers, but it does apparently reset DC's universe entirely, followed by Blue Beetle, and then leading to Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, which is followed by Gunn's film that he's currently drafting titled Superman Legacy. The promo art that they're using is Frank Quitely's Superman from the cover of All-Star Superman, which is probably one of the most universally critically lauded and beloved Superman stories of all time, certainly of recent memory. Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman tells the story of a Superman in the process of losing his powers and what that means for his legacy, his history, and his future. And it also ends with a surprisingly compassionate and redemptive scene in which Lex Luthor experiences Superman's power firsthand and is so moved that he breaks down, completely overcome. Now, if I had to pick a work that's the brightest and truest of modern DC, it's probably this, or Jeff Johns' JSA, and Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which, listen, we're about to get to. Before the movies, though, James Gunn promised to unify animation, television, and gaming, which is hugely ambitious, but the first animated series, Creature Commandos, and the upcoming live-action Waller series seem to tie into one another connectedly, and feature characters central to both Gunn's Peacemaker as well as the classic Creature Commandos comic, also including Frankenstein's monster, and possibly the return of Weasel from the Suicide Squad. Beyond that, the film project slated for The Authority seems largely based on the original Grant Morrison, Mark Miller runs collaboratively with Brian Hitch, featuring probably the original lineup. It sounds like they're going to take a much more vigilante or The Boys version of a Justice League or a darker, grittier superhero team as much as you might want. So Snyder fanboys should be satisfied with this because that's what The Authority was when Wildstorm debuted. Additionally, while Matt Reeves' Batman Part 2 is coming out October of 2025, The Brave and the Bold, featuring another actor as Bruce Wayne and Batman alongside his son Damian Wayne, the grandson of Ra's al Ghul, the son of Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne, who grew up as a trained assassin in the League of Shadows and became Robin eventually, and in Grant Morrison's Batman 666 ends up being Batman, will be mainstream in DCU continuity. I'm sure this means that he will also have this run based on Morrison's Batman as well. Too much Morrison. Additionally, a Booster Gold TV series that sounds like it will deviate little from his origins as a washed-up 25th century sports star who steals museum tech and a flight ring to go back in time and masquerade as a superhero in the 20th or 21st century is slated for roughly the same time frame as well. But again, just a TV series. Additionally, a planned buddy cop show called Lanterns will focus on Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan as Green Lantern solving a mystery, and has been described as a true detective-style cop show. mysteries haven't really been that central to Green Lantern stories over the last decade or so or more, although a fresh perspective with fan-favorite characters seems like a win as a Green Lantern fan whose live-action win is long overdue. Following these in film is Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Ostensibly, it sounds like they're going to have Tom King, the writer of the original series that came out last year, write this. And if they have a director and star attached, and they nail this, it could end up being one of the greatest films probably of that year, and easily one of the greatest superhero movies that's ever been made. Listen, if you failed to pick the original up in trade, I am very sorry, because it's out of print everywhere, and for very good reason. Tom King's space western starring Kara Zor-El and Ruth, the daughter of a murdered rock farmer on a distant planet, as they search for justice for her father's killers, is heartbreakingly and beautifully written by Tom King and richly illustrated by Bill Quisevely. Probably one of the best series from Tom King that I have read, of which there are many, and it deserved all of the accolades that it got. You can read it now on DC Infinite, and I want to highly recommend that you do. It's probably one of my favorite DC short series ever. And of course, love for my guy Swamp Thing. Created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, he's got a couple of on-screen adaptations, including the short-lived TV series that was on DC Universe / HBO Max that should never have been canceled. But it sounds like this film is going to be a full horror film that might blend his origin story with the Alan Moore run with Moore's collaborators in the 80s. Or maybe an entirely original story with threads of other popular runs. Time will tell. I'm just happy that they're going to try and do Swamp Thing correctly. Lastly, Paradise Lost, which was the title of a JLA miniseries in the late 90s by Mark Millar, will probably not be based on that run, nor on its Miltonian namesake, but a story purportedly centering on the ancient history of the Amazons and the island of Themyscira, how it came to exist, why it is populated only by very powerful women and hidden from the world of men. Now, certainly that's not where their plans end, and I'm certain that this is just a small part of a larger plan that Gunn and Safran have. My guess is that since they mentioned that Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck are not on board as Batman and Superman in an interview, at least not right now, I think that they will eventually adapt Mark Waid and Alex Ross's Kingdom Come. And I'm very excited for the idea of that as well. Putting two, certainly everybody loved Henry Cavill as Superman, and some people really enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman for reasons. That aside, I think that bringing them on board for a project like that would be fantastic. Now, frankly, I've always mostly liked James Gunn, but not all the time. His style has worked incredibly well for dark comedy and offbeat stuff like Guardians and Suicide Squad. And certainly when I think about DC, I think the tone of like Richard Donner or Justice League Unlimited, Justice League International, Jorge Luis Garcia Lopez, Marv Wolfman, George Perez. I think about bright colors and capes, and that is just not James Gunn. But he seems to be taking stuff from source material that I love, and that gives me hope and confidence. I also mentioned gaming, and there's no games that he's listed so far. Only one animated series. And I cannot tell you guys how much I have always wanted a Justice League or DC style RPG or action RPG that's kind of in the vein of BioWare's Dragon Age. So I have no idea what they're going to do, but I'm hoping that it's fun. In the meantime, we'll see for the first time in over a decade the future of DC looking as bright as it actually should. Thanks for checking this out and watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe and the bell. I'm Dan Umphin. This is the Doomcast.